I would consider myself a dreamer, someone who likes to, I would consider myself someone who likes to dream and think big idea. A lot of the conversations that I get to have with roasting companies in the Midwest involves, menu formation. I get to help them plan out their coffee menu for some folks for the entire year. Oh, please, yeah. Please. What an honor. Thank you.
Jack, I feel like your spout is more pointed than mine at home.
Like in a good way?
In a good way, yeah.
In a good way, okay. I like it. I've had no problems with it. I don't think those spouts are super great. I feel like it's really hard to get a good spout on a double wall glass.
Yeah.
It's so thick.
Do you think it's about even? Do you think somebody got more than the other?
We'll never know.
I want to.
We should bring out the scale.
I'll give it to Ben.
Oh, what? That's too kind.
Amazing. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Equal Parts Coffee Podcast. We are super excited today because we have guest Ben Martin on. Say hi, Ben.
What's up, everyone?
I'm Nick. This is Jack, if you didn't know.
Howdy. Welcome back.
Yeah, Jack, what are we drinking today?
We are drinking a Colombia Pink Bourbon from, what is this place called again? The Regalia Coffee Roasters. Super excited about this one.
Yeah, so this was a coffee where I was just scrolling on Instagram, and Scott Rayo, some of you might know who he is, posted just like a picture of this bag and said basically I was given this coffee green to try. He wasn't able to try it before it actually all sold out, but he said it was one of the best coffees he's had all year. So
coming from that guy,
I was like, all right,
that's high praise.
Yeah, I had to try it. I mean, and that's a big thing this year of trying coffees and only to find out they're not available anymore.
Yeah.
Or sorry, last year, but this year as well.
Yeah. And that's actually, oh, that's good. Whoa.
Yeah, it makes you pause, right?
Hang on.
Just smelling that. Hold on. Let's take this in for a little bit.
I want to savor this moment.
Yeah. It's stinking hot.
I just burned my tongue a little bit. Hopefully I didn't ruin the whole experience.
It's the worst.
You guys will have to tell me.
It's pretty perfumey, I feel like.
Like, yeah, I'm smelling like, specifically with the coffee beans themselves, I'm smelling like dried strawberry.
Mm-hmm.
The dried strawberries that you get in those cereal boxes. That was like one of my favorite things growing up. You pour it, you add the milk, just kind of rehydrates.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. So this is an anaerobic washed geisha. So I don't think that I've had an anaerobic washed.
I don't think I have either. Not a geisha, at least.
Is geisha or gesha?
I say
You're
geisha.
the pro. You say geisha?
Yeah, I'm more of a geisha guy.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I was
I'll say
raised,
it then.
some people spell it with an I, some people spell it without an I.
Yeah.
I'm more of a...
Yeah, there's no I. So if there's an I, is it a geisha?
You could say it however you want.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've learned. A lot of the pronouncing things is, you can only do so much because a lot of these are names of people of certain coffees. So you're kind of guessing and, you're not really saying it in their native tongue to begin with. So you're going to be pronouncing it wrong however you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Cool. So, Ben.
Yes, sir.
Why don't we start off by talking a little bit about what you do for a living?
All right. Well, I work in coffee, similar to these two guys. So I work for a company called Ally Coffee, and that is a green coffee importing company. So essentially what I do, I'm an account manager at Ally, and I help roasters here in the Midwest get connected to coffees and producers really all over the world and kind of help them select coffees for their menu and then handle some logistics to get the coffee from farm to roastery.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
And how did you get into that?
Yeah, the journey was long and fun, and I mean, honestly, I am kind of working in my dream job right now, one of my dream jobs. So I feel very lucky. But I started as a barista at a place in Grand Rapids when I was in college, Grand Rapids, Michigan. I worked at a place called Roaster Coffee, and eventually managed the cafe there. And then I got another job across town at a place called Madcap Coffee, and worked there for a good 5-6 years. Half that time as a barista and kind of as like in cafe management as well. And then moving into more of like a wholesale kind of sales and education role. So I did that for a few years. But really, while I was at Madcap, working in that wholesale role especially, and being in the office and just kind of involved with a lot of conversations behind the scenes, I just got to, as a lot of people who work at a coffee roasting company do, wear a lot of hats, and participate in a lot of different things. And one of those things was going to Origin, or going on an Origin trip. So at one point during my time at Madcap, I got invited to tag along for an Origin trip to Guatemala. And that was a truly life-changing experience, I would say. And it just changed the way that I experienced coffee, and it really kind of lit a fire in me, I guess, for that side of the industry, the green coffee side of things. That is maybe a little more niche to the average consumer. It's not something that a ton of people really think about from the outside, at least. But the more I learned about it, the more, and especially after having that experience in Guatemala, we just couldn't get enough, and really wanted to, if at all possible, move in that direction in my career. And then a couple years later, job opened up at Ally Coffee, and I went for it and got really lucky. So yeah, that's how I got. That's the brief version of how I got here.
Amazing. That's super cool. I'm curious what you're doing now, what's one of your favorite parts of your job?
That's a really good question. There's a lot that I love about this job. And I do feel very lucky to have it. I would consider myself a dreamer, someone who likes to, I would consider myself someone who likes to dream and think big idea. A lot of the conversations that I get to have with roasting companies in the Midwest involves, menu formation. I get to help them plan out their coffee menu for some folks for the entire year, planning well in advance, talking about what's coming down the pipe, what is, what harvest is looking like, things they want to add to their menu this year, things that maybe we did last year that they're like, maybe we want to try something different this year. Yep. I think those kind of, dreaming conversations of what could we turn this into, or what could we do this year? What could we do in the future? How can we do this better? Yeah. That is a really, really fun aspect of my job. Yeah, I would say, can I add a second answer to that actually?
Yeah,
I just thought of another thing that I like just as much. There is coffee producing is maybe historically, let's just say it's not the moneymaker. No, there's not a ton of coffee farmers who are living, with a ton of resources. Working for an importing company that really values equity on the producer side of things and on the roaster side of things, equity for all involved. I have just discovered this deep passion to see change in that and move the industry forward in that sense of like, how can we make coffee farming a more sustainable career path? Because the reality is like, there's just not a ton of historically there's just not a ton of money in coffee farming for most farmers. Therefore, like one crisis that we're seeing, and maybe crisis is a strong word, but one thing we're seeing is, the younger generation who is raised on a coffee farm doesn't want to farm coffee, and typically a lot of coffee farms are passed down generationally, but this younger generation is seeing their parents or their grandparents not make a ton of money, not have all of this success, and especially with, in the social media era where you can see all these great things you can do with your life. Like, why would they want to do coffee farming if they're just, not going to make a lot of money, live potentially in poverty? It's just not a very attractive career path, which means, in the future, we might have less and less and less coffee producers, which means probably less and less and less coffee, lower quality coffee. Who knows? And so I loving coffee so much, loving the industry so much, and just finding so much value in what producers are doing. I want to be, even if in just the smallest way, just be a part of seeing that change and move forward.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I love about the specialty coffee industry as a whole, is just the increasing transparency about a lot of these things, about like what you're buying, how that directly impacts someone else's life, be it the coffee producer, the roaster, your barista, all of those involved. There's more of a desire from the consumer side of wanting to know, like, how am I helping these people, rather than maybe just helping myself? Like, how, not just the roasters, like, how am I helping the coffee producers over on the other side of the world who are working tirelessly to produce this coffee? Like, how am I helping them?
That's something that I think that a lot of people will find value in this here, is just learning a little bit about green coffee in general and kind of that side of things, because it's kind of hard to get information unless you're seeking it out or really knowing what things are. But coffee is so, I feel like, more than a lot of things, it's so connected globally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like the people connections are so tight. Like it's really, you're not that far removed from a lot of the people in coffee.
Absolutely.
So
and
cool.
If you really think about it, there are so many hands that touch a coffee bean, from the farmer and any other employees of that farm, the pickers and the people working at the washing station or the washing mill or the processing mill, and then the people who drive it once it's all packaged in burlap sacks, driving it to the port, getting on the ocean freighter and headed up to the warehouse and wherever it's headed, and then the warehouse workers, and then the transportation from the warehouse to the roastery, and then from the roastery, the roaster, and then the people packaging that, and then if it's being served in a cafe, the baristas who are brewing that, finally to you, the consumer of that coffee. There are just so many hands that go into making this right here, and we get to benefit a lot from that. And so for all people along that chain of supply, that they deserve to be treated fairly and in a way that will inspire them and provide for them, and also move the industry as a whole forward.
Yeah. That's one of those things that's just crazy to me, is like, with how many people are involved in that chain, how is anybody making any money just with how many people?
It's amazing.
Really
like,
have to,
a cup of coffee in a cafe costs, on I don't know, $5 on average maybe. And it's just hard to imagine, like, how,
how did $5 go so far?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
kind of crazy. So what's maybe the process look like for people that don't know, as far as, actually don't know what my question was.
That's fine.
It's gone.
That's fine.
I had started a question.
I would assume it had to do with green coffee.
Yeah, it did have to do with green coffee, but
nice.
It's just totally gone. All right, so right now, a lot of people might not know this, but coffee is at a record high cost.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yes.
That's part of the reason why I figured it'd be relevant.
It's a crazy world out there right now in the coffee, in the green coffee market, let's just say. Maybe I'll explain how coffee is generally priced. For people who may not know, because it's a little nuanced. And also different importing companies, and everyone has their own little way of doing this. So maybe different places it will be done a little differently, but in general, there's this thing called the C market, or you can call it the coffee futures market, the commodity market. There is a price on the New York Stock Exchange that coffee is valued at. And it's generally like in the last year, 2 years, really, we've seen it range from it's listed as cents per pound, so not necessarily dollars per pound, which is why you'll see, like, if you looked at it right now, the prices, at least when I checked earlier today, it was around like it would look like it says $327, but really that's 327 cents per pound, which is really $3.27. Sure. So if you were going to go buy some green coffee and you were buying it at the C market price, you'd be paying $3.27 per pound for that coffee.
Who's paying C market for their coffee?
In the specialty coffee world, nobody will be paying that. That's more of like, you look at places like Starbucks, really people who are buying in crazy volume. Most people are not buying at C market level because nobody will make money if that happens. So essentially importers and farmers will daily look at this price that the stock exchange, that the coffee futures price is set at, which is impacted by many variables. A lot of them are projections, and the two, to not create an exhaustive list, the two biggest factors that really influence the price on the C market are Brazil and Vietnam, essentially. The harvest in Brazil and the harvest in Vietnam, and the projections of what they're expecting. And that can be based on, weather that they're seeing, when harvest is actually happening, like the discrepancy between projection and actual harvest. That can impact the price. So, like, let's say, the price is crazy high right now. In unprecedented, as I'm sure, a word that is no stranger to anyone. But it's high because projections for the upcoming Brazil harvest have been low, and that changes. Weekly, monthly, new projections are coming out all the time, and that impacts the price. Importing companies and farmers will charge a price based on the stock market because they need to make margin. And so in order with rising costs means they have to also charge higher prices. So prices can change daily, prices can change weekly. But the last several months from today up until now has just been a steady rise into this. Like a year ago, the price that coffee's at now is about half of what it is right now. So it has just been a wild time to. You
said until now. It's like today. Has it gone down a little bit?
No, it has not, and it probably won't for a while. At least
it's been rising, not just holding, right?
Rising. The last couple weeks, it's been holding a little bit. In the steady, like, low 315, 325 area, maybe 330. It gets up to. Different people will predict different things. That's another thing. With the stock market in general, not just exclusive to coffee, it's just unpredictable too. Yeah. So working with my clients right now is also a little tricky because there are people asking me, well, like, should I wait until the market goes down to lock in my coffee? And that's hard for me to say because ideally, like, that would be great. That works great for everybody. I can charge you a lower price. You can get it at a lower price. Everyone wins. But the reality is we don't know when or even if it's going to go down. It could be a very long time. And it could continue to rise. Some people, some experts would say that it's just going to keep going up until it hits that, $4 per pound mark. We'll see. So it's tricky forecasting and planning with coffee roasting companies right now because with how volatile the market is, it's just impossible to predict. Yeah. So.
And, excuse me. Obviously, coffee prices are going up, so potentially more money making potential involved for farmers. Yeah. But like what exactly does that mean? And is it super beneficial for everyone involved?
Isn't that just that's the question?
Yes.
I would say the response to that is a mixed response. I would say. One thing we're seeing right now when it comes to at least producers and farmers, they are backing out of contracts that they made at when it was at a lower price so that they can capitalize on it being at a higher price. Sure. So future contracts where they committed to delivering certain coffees, they're backing out of those contracts and then reselling that coffee at a higher price. Because they can, and the C market is much higher now. So that is one thing that's leaving importing companies kind of and roasting companies kind of like out to dry a little bit. Because backing out of these commitments means that like I don't have this coffee for you anymore. Sorry. So but then the farmers are indeed making more money off of their coffee. And so it is a really tricky thing. And I don't know that it really benefits everybody, at least not in this moment in time. Because it is still a newer thing. It is still rough waters that we're trying to wade through and kind of figure it out.
Yeah, very volatile. It's not like higher prices don't necessarily mean better experience for other people.
Right. And that's just, as a consumer, the hard reality is that if coffee roasting companies are going to be paying more for their coffee, and not only that, but we're seeing, transportation costs are going, like, absolutely. What cost isn't going up these days? So it just means roasting companies are going to be forced to raise prices on their bags of coffee, on their cups of coffee, in their cafes, on their goods and services, and so and there's, in my opinion, there's benefit to that, but there's also like that will be an adjustment. For sure.
And obviously, we've seen coffee prices steadily go up, and a chance for them to go up even higher. Because I've seen when buying coffee from Mundo's, certain crops will taste right ahead of time, and by the time when we want to go order this coffee, it's gone. Somebody else bought it up. So like, what does that mean for like the future of buying coffee? It seems obviously with everything very volatile.
Sure. So I would say short answer is one, that's something that I think importing companies are still figuring out what the best plan of action is there. There are more than two, but there are two, I would say, primary ways that somebody can buy coffee from an importing company or just from a farm in general. One of those ways, most importing companies have what they call spot inventory at a warehouse. So we're based in the United States. My company has several different warehouses across the country that we work with and store our coffee at. New Jersey, South Carolina, Oakland, Texas, you name it. But so we will have a certain amount of green coffee inventory stored at these warehouses at any given time. That has not been committed to by a client yet. So Mundo's could come to me and say like, "Hey, what do you have in New Jersey right now? And can we taste some sample?" And I will send them the list of what's available in our New Jersey warehouse to purchase and to be ready. It's ready immediately. It doesn't have to cross the ocean to get here. It's just you can contract the coffee and I can ship it out to you immediately. That is one way to buy coffee. Another way is, and there's multiple different nuances within this, but some people use the phrasing like direct trade or pre-selling or back-to-back business or whatever. Like a lot of them mean a lot of the same things. Where a roasting company can be in contact directly with a farmer, agree on a price that the farmer wants to sell the coffee at, and then they would find an importing company to handle the logistics for that.
Sure.
And then that would mean that roasting company commits to that coffee before it reaches the United States, before it reaches the warehouse, which means they'll probably have to wait a few months for it to be ready to go. Yep. So that's like, contracting things way ahead of time, pre-selling coffee before it even hits the U.S. market. And And like right now, Central America is harvesting coffee, and we're beginning to have conversations with clients about coffee from Central America. And if anyone wants to, lock in their coffee now, before it even gets to the States, so that they're just, once it lands, they can just release it to their warehouse. And so one thing we're seeing, back to your original question, importers are decreasing the amount of spot inventory they have, because that's a liability. Because we've purchased that coffee, but if prices are going up, less and less people are going to be interested in buying it, and then we're just sitting on this inventory that's aging and becoming less tasty.
Yeah, just losing value.
Becomes less. Nobody wants to buy it, and then it becomes what we call past crop coffee. And some people buy past crop coffee, but you sell that at a discount. So we ultimately end up losing money on that purchase. So roasters, because of the financial liability that is becoming because of the high stock market prices, are trying to decrease their spot inventory, not get rid of it completely, but prioritize this like pre-sell model of business, and to get roasters to commit to coffee before we have the liability of storing it in our warehouse.
Sure. Yeah.
So
great.
So what exactly is, so if you were saying that, right, these small specialty roasters, they're not paying the C market price for coffee. So how is that impacting these smaller roasters? Like, why is it impacting them? That base price is getting more expensive.
Yeah. So, the C market price, and a lot of people these days would argue that, especially for specialty coffee roasters, smaller specialty, higher end coffee roasters, a lot of people would argue that we should move away from the C market model and basing for that being the foundation of our pricing. And I see a lot of merit in that argument. So essentially, a lot of importing companies will do what we call hedging their sale. So prices fluctuate because the contract that the importing company will enter into with the producer is kind of like we'll buy this coffee, and then once we sell it, we'll have margin to be able to then pay you. But because C market price changes, the C market is the foundation for most coffee prices. And a coffee is not hedged at a certain price until it is sold to a roaster. And so that causes prices to fluctuate daily, essentially. A lot of people would say we need to just move away from the C market altogether. And I'm not saying I disagree with that, because it would be a lot simpler, and then prices wouldn't change day to day. A farmer can just set, this is my FOB price, which FOB just means the price to get it from the farm to the port. And then that's just the price it is. And then any additional charge will be for the importation services from port to warehouse, and just call it good. But because farmers are prioritizing C market, then everyone else also has to prioritize C market as well. So, yeah. Priced on quality, priced on exclusivity, like farmers produce a certain amount of every lot of coffee, and also a certain quality. So those things are evaluated, taken into consideration when a farmer creates a price for their coffee. There's also just generally a lot of negotiating going into these conversations. And a lot of different opinions going all over the place.
So what do you think? Because I know you mentioned kind of the impact on like the consumer side, the cafe side. What do you think coming out of this might be some impacts that people might not think about as much? Not just obviously increased cost, but what would some other impacts be to people's experience of coffee because of this?
I mean, not to get all doomsday on us, but I think the hard reality is that if coffee does go up in price, especially specialty coffee, it creeps more and more into the realm of being a luxury product, which is not totally a bad thing. I don't think. I'm not saying that's. I mean, wine is like a great example of like a nice bottle of wine is expensive, but people are willing to pay that money.
Yeah.
People are not there with coffee yet.
No.
At least not most people. Maybe the three of us would certainly splurge on some things.
I mean, this
like
is a great example,
right, and it's wonderful. I would in a heartbeat do that again. But I think the hard reality with the general consumer not maybe being totally on board with those kinds of prices for coffee is that people are going to buy less and less specialty grade coffee, which in turn will just inevitably, sadly, lead to businesses closing. Some of our favorite coffee roasters might, not be able to sustain if they're not selling, if they just can't sell coffee at the prices that it's warranting right now. There might just be some businesses that go out of business. Some people might not make it,
or lower their quality,
compromise quality,
coffees.
And not even necessarily because they want a lower quality, but just because they have to stay afloat to charge lower prices. So I think that's maybe a fairly negative thing. But also, it's going to force us as an industry to get creative and find solutions of like how can we still be a sustainable industry that's providing for everyone along the supply chain while staying in business. So I don't know. I don't know what that creativity could look like, but finding creative and unique ways to make a profit and get people excited about coffee and yeah, I don't know. Those are some things that immediately come to mind when you ask that question.
Yeah. Were you gonna say something?
Oh no.
Sorry, I heard your mouth open.
And I would also say like we don't know what tomorrow brings either. Like the market, it might totally go down overnight.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen, but it could, and then that once again just changes everything.
Yep.
So the unpredictability is also just really difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
What do we think of this coffee?
It's good. I feel like as it cools down, I'm getting a little bit of like a vegetalness to it, just a little bit of like a leafy bitterness.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's the coffee or the extraction method or whatnot, but just a little bit of that on the back end of it. But it is really tasty. These anaerobic wash coffees do really always remind me of gin in a way, like with that like dry.
When you said that on I think it was the last episode, I was like, I've never thought about it like that, but he is so right.
Yeah.
Every anaerobic wash I've had has been just like this floral, kind of like sparkly, kind of like clean coffee.
Yeah.
Doesn't have all the anaerobic, qualities of an anaerobic natural, of course, but gin is such a good way to compare that. Good thing to compare that to, I think.
Yeah. Ben, when did you experience your first? When was your first specialty coffee experience?
Ooh, just in general, not as an employee. Just like what was my light bulb moment?
What made you fall in love with specialty coffee?
Ooh, that's a fun question. I grew up in Illinois and I hated coffee. Well, I guess I didn't know I hated coffee. I just never drank it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I went to college. I went to college and I had a night class my first semester, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. accounting class. So I'm not staying awake for that for an accounting class at night.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I got to find a way to get some more energy. I also had a terrible sleep schedule because I'm a freshman in college and I just staying up way too late. Hanging out with my friends every night. And so I'm like, man, I got to find a way to stay awake during this class. And there was this little coffee shop, not a specialty coffee shop, but a little coffee shop in our, campus student center, which is right by the bus stop where I would take the bus down to class and I would get a cinnamon roll latte. I decided one day, I'm like, I'm going to try this. And I was immediately just hooked.
Nice.
The cinnamon roll latte was just the most amazing thing that I had ever tasted. So I no longer, it started as just a utility for my night class, but then it became a frequent thing that I would go and pick up. But discovering that created this desire to seek out, like what kind of coffee shops we got in town here in Grand Rapids. And so I started going around to local shops, and I was definitely, a mocha guy. I was trying pretty much everyone's mocha in town, but I do remember
mocha guys.
And the more I talk to people, the more I'm realizing
you go mocha, then you go cappuccino.
That's right. And hey,
it's not a lot of mocha, latte, then cappuccino. It's mocha, straight to cappuccino.
But I had some friends in college that really liked coffee and really liked, especially black coffee, and so they convinced me one time to go to Madcap Coffee, which is a cafe that I ended up working at. And I remember trying I remember talking to the barista and him walking me through the menu. And I remember this is not the kind of coffee that most people have for their light bulb, like specialty coffee moment. I just had a beautiful washed Rwandan coffee. And I remember sitting with that coffee and I'm like, I like this. I like this a lot. It was a coffee called Kanzu. I'll never forget it. I just since then have been hooked. I was drawn to coffee, of course, because of the community aspect of it too. Of course, being a medium to gather over, being a medium to have really good, potentially life-changing conversation over.
Absolutely.
I've seen it happen over and over again in my own life, and so it's just become, I don't know, maybe that's cliche, but it's just this thing that people gather over, and being someone who values community, I just more than the way it tastes. That's what I'm interested in, is creating a space for hospitality and community, and so that was what drew me to cafe and coffee culture. The Rwanda Kanzu from Madcap back in 2014 hooked me, and I've been in ever since. I feel like most people, it's a natural a naturally processed coffee that is their first, coffee can taste like this.
It's funny you say washed Rwandan, because in 2014, because that's actually when my dad had his first cup of specialty coffee.
No way.
Was at Marshall's in Traverse City. It was a washed Rwandan
served in Intelligentsia.
Yep.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, and he just was like, did not realize that coffee could taste this good and this complex and rich. So that started his journey.
We also have some washed Rwandans on their way.
We got 2 washed Rwandans on the way.
That's exciting.
Hitting the Mundo shelves soon here. So
heck yeah.
Yeah, we got one of them. It's really cool because we got a washed Rwanda, Dukundikawa, I believe it's pronounced.
Nice.
And we also have a natural version of the same coffee. So it's cool to contrast the two, see them side by side. So excited for those.
Are they going to have similar names?
Yeah, it's just going to, I think they're both going to be named Dukundikawa. Obviously, I'll have to figure out a way to differentiate the two.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's exciting. Can't wait to try them.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like I was going to say about community, that's one of my favorite things about coffees. Obviously, coffee tastes amazing, but just having that one thing that can gather everyone around. Like coffee is the second most consumed beverage in the world, right behind water. Of course, like there's just so many people of all cultures, of all races and religions, just everyone coming around coffee. And that's why, like, in our cafes, we prioritize the cafe space rather than having, a very, a bar with a few seats and you're in and out. It's more of like a lot of seating. There's a lot of places to gather, bring your friends, stay for a while. That's what we encourage. It's like coffee's great. We serve that, but it's more about your experience and the community here.
I love that.
Yeah. I had a question again about, I don't remember what it was. This is ridiculous.
I stole it from you, my bad.
Ridiculous. It was about green coffee side of things. Oh, I was just curious. Are there any countries, coffee markets that you see that are being especially impacted by this?
Well, we've seen the price of Brazilian coffees
Yeah,
obviously
sure.
go way up.
And that's the origin that's known for like. It's
They're
usually
low
not
price.
that expensive.
Yeah.
Not to say low quality, but
which
generally low price compared to, say Ethiopia or Colombia.
exactly, which was the last time we went and bought coffee. It was very unfortunate because we had a Brazilian on the table we were cupping.
Yeah.
And it was really good, but it was more of that run-of-the-mill Brazilian coffee, more mellow. So it fits a unique profile. There's not a huge demand for it. So because of the price point compared to the other ones on the table, we unfortunately had to decline that coffee just because of the price it was being sold at.
Exactly. I would say maybe it's not a specific origin, but a specific type of coffee that I would label as a blender. Blender coffees are maybe something that Brazil is a very common origin for blender coffees.
Yep.
Generally something that works really well with a lot of other coffees, but it's also lower priced. Most people's blends or house blends or espresso blends are some of the cheaper coffees on the menu. A very, very approachable entryway into specialty coffee, a very approachable price point for just like for a subscription style service. Blender coffees have significantly risen in price along with, many single origin coffees have too, but single origin can get away with being priced a little higher, a little more easily, because there's not necessarily an expected price, at least not compared to like a blender. Like if I go to a cafe to buy a bag of someone's house blend, my natural instinct is to think, it's probably going to not be that expensive of a bag of coffee compared to the single origins. But because blender style coffees, a lot of these, very your quintessential Brazils or Guatemala or just really any coffee I guess can be a blender coffee, but these kind of like slightly lower quality than what you would serve on your single origin menu, but still specialty grade, still good coffee, generally found at a lower price point, are now all of a sudden being priced at what typical single origins used to be priced at. So that is maybe less so an origin that's being impacted more than others, but a style of coffee. Because that specialty coffee, kind of wanting to separate itself from places like Starbucks and here in Michigan, Big B, and all these other places that are like that. A house blend or that's a kind of like a stepping stone into the the single origin world and a very approachable entry point into specialty coffee.
Yeah, those coffees, they bring a lot of approachability to specialty coffee. Totally. Like at an accessible price point, because a lot of these single origins we sell for a very high price, and you see that and you're like, I'm not going to even try that because it's ridiculously priced compared to what you're paying at the grocery store. So having a more of approachable option that is still specialty grade and that you can go up from there, that is a very crucial coffee to have. So that being increased to that level, you'll see coffee prices across the board, because a lot of the times I see places will use those type of coffees to kind of balance the margins of certain things. So that's a great. You're able to keep your prices at a low enough level where people are still, coming in, getting drinks. So that's going to change a lot of things. Those being that high price.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, and also those coffees are typically nice too because they like do well with milk.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Like
great.
If it's going to be your main espresso in like your espresso blend, you need it to be a mellower coffee.
And those are
hold up with milk.
Those are cafes bread and butter.
Absolutely.
Is
milk drinks in a
lattes.
cafe is that's the highest selling item I would imagine in most cafes. And so it's interesting time.
So I don't know if we talked about this specifically, but what about the harvests, like in Brazil, for example, being projected lower is actually making that cost go up? I don't know if we talked about that directly.
Thanks for bringing it back to that. I meant to say something about that. So projections happen based on a variety of things, things like weather. So if the harvest is projected to be lower than usual, that means less coffee is available to buy, which means prices will go up. If there's more coffee available to buy, then there's just a surplus of coffee, then prices can stay down. So it's very much so directly impacted to availability and demand or supply and demand of coffee. And so, yeah, it's for like it would be with most supply chains. If there's a lot of coffee available, there's probably going to be lower prices. If there's not a ton available, it becomes a more exclusive thing. It just becomes a higher price thing. And so, if they're projecting a bad harvest due to whatever factor, due to bad weather, that means the prices are going to hike up a little bit. Which is one of the main things contributing to the prices right now.
Yeah. And so these large companies that tend to buy those coffees from Brazil, Vietnam, with them having less access to coffee from those countries, are we seeing them dip into kind of the specialty market at all? Or are there any countries that we have seen more like larger companies buying from?
That's a very interesting question. I would say, I mean, look at Starbucks, like they have the reserve side of their brand. And yes, a company like Starbucks is buying an unfathomable amount of coffee. And so I would say those bigger companies, because of their buying power, probably are the ones who get first dibs at all this coffee, which maybe leaves the smaller guys more so out to dry rather than the bigger guys. Because it's like a name like Starbucks, like literally the biggest name in coffee, and probably doing the highest volume of any company in the world in terms of green coffee. So every supplier I want Starbucks because they're going to buy so much coffee. So I would say maybe it's not so much those guys that get skimped out or that have to adjust. It's going to force the smaller guys who have less buying power to have to make adjustments, I would say. Does that make sense to your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
On the topic of Starbucks, did you guys see that they launched an Cortado on their menu?
Did they now? I did not see this.
It's an 8-ounce drink.
Oh, that just hurts.
So not really
It does.
Sure what it
That
is.
just hurts.
I mean, we've been fighting so hard with this
Is it at least
macchiato debacle.
Oh,
You got
man.
the Starbucks macchiato you're talking about.
And I thought we had made so
you
much
got to explain that.
progress on the
If they could just
macchiato
make
debate.
up some more names instead of just taking the
Yeah.
old ones,
Now, what I
that'd
want to
be
know
super helpful.
is it at least 4 ounces of espresso and 4 ounces of
So
milk?
on their website, I went to their website.
Yeah.
My first time on their website. It said 3 shots of ristretto espresso of their blonde roast or whatever. So I don't think it's equal parts espresso and
shots?
coffee.
I don't
3
understand.
shots. I don't know.
Oh man,
They're just making stuff up now.
that just hurts a little.
And I saw their picture, and it's like a huge glass, and there's like this much foam on top. There's no art.
I'm gonna have to look at this.
It's just
Probably about the smallest drink you can get there, isn't
probably.
I was gonna. Yeah, it probably is.
Probably. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you
man.
could probably just get straight espresso there, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But like,
probably. Wow.
So yeah, who knows? I think they probably launched it because of the Cortados. At least to me, it seems like there's been somewhat of a surge in popularity of a actual Cortado, like a 4 or 5 ounce drink. Like a lot of people are ordering those in cafes these days. So maybe they've saw that and they're like, we want in on that. So they took that name and made their own drink with it. So hopefully it's not going to affect those awkward conversations of having to explain what this drink is.
It may.
I mean, I'm going to be putting a 4-ounce Cortado on the bar, and people are going to be confused.
We're going to have to put an
Yeah.
asterisk
because
on
they
the
thought
menu.
they knew what they were getting.
This is a 4-ounce drink.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's fun.
Wow. I had not seen that. I'm gonna have to go find that
Yeah.
after this.
It is.
That's so sad.
Have to try one.
I mean, I guess.
I have
Next podcast.
only had Starbucks coffee one time and an
Nice.
airport, and it was. I didn't want to just drink the regular coffee, so I got some sort of latte, and I couldn't drink it.
Man,
It
you're
wasn't good.
a true specialty coffee purist here.
Yeah.
Born and raised specialty coffee.
Oh yeah, I didn't have much experience with any other coffee. By the time I was of coffee
your family
consuming
didn't
age,
like coffee at all.
And your dad started the company when you were still like young enough that you probably
exactly.
weren't
So
drinking
I mean,
coffee
I
then.
started I started roasting coffee before I started drinking coffee. I was like 12, 13 when I started roasting coffee. So
that's a wild
I was
statement.
at that point kind of before that, I tasted some coffees. I helped my parents do wedding photography.
Yeah.
So I always try a little bit of the coffee. Just made me feel cool. It didn't taste good at all, but
it totally is one of those beverages that makes you just feel cool drinking.
Yeah, exactly. And of course it's like the wedding coffee late at night. And it's
The
been
wedding
sitting
coffee
there
that's made in that giant percolator.
Yeah, it's just been sitting there, and it's like, oh
man.
But yeah, I've been spoiled. You could say.
That's
you
very
could
nice.
say.
You could say.
That's very nice.
All right. Well, do you guys have any other ideas, things, anything that wasn't mentioned?
I can't think of anything.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Yeah. Thanks.
It
a
is.
lot.
It is an
We
honor.
appreciate you
I
making
cannot believe
time.
you guys invited me to do this with you.
This is
It is a joy. Thank you. Thank you guys.
It's a joy for us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We will
guys.
see you guys later. Let us know if you have any questions, any comments, anything. We want to see them.
Hit us up.
Yeah. Hit us up.
Take it easy.
Bye.